During preseason, I said that this was truly the year to start with a 5 at the back formation. I myself started with 4 and I didn't spend enough on those 4 defenders. Now that I'm wildcarded and I'm going to stick with the plan and I'm going to go with 4 or likely 5 at the back, and I'm going to be spending big. Now, people claim that 5 defender formations are too inflexible. You can't jump on and off those valuable and volatile players that come in and out of form, and it's just too defensive. Today, I'm going to show you why a 5 defender formation and going really big at the back is arguably the most flexible formation, and why it matters to your team and the players in your team that we'll be calling the untouchables. Let's get into it. So first of all, let's agree then that 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 is the most used, most popular, and arguably most successful formations in years gone by. In today's video, I will talk to you, I said earlier, about untouchables. So what are untouchables? Simply put, they are the players who are undroppable, unsubbable. You won't bench them. You'll play them week in, week out quite confidently. You'd only sell them if there's a long-term injury, long suspension, 3 or 4 match suspension, or a huge drop in form. Like the players played 8 games and they've not returned anything and they've just completely fallen off a cliff in terms of form. For example, Mo Salah would be one of your untouchables. If he's fit, you're not going to bench him. You're always going to play him, right? So when I say untouchable, they are undroppable, unsubbable, and you would only sell them if there is like a major issue. Finally, before I show the reasoning and examples, I'll briefly say that why I first suggested 5 at the back at the start of this season is I feel as though there's been a shift, an evolution in football where defenders now, not even just wing backs now, but centre backs have become more integral in attacking movements, which is another reason why going, I think, 5 at the back has become better for this season especially. And big final reminder before we get into some deconstruction and explaining about flexibility and reasons why 5 or a big 5, big 4-man defense is the way to go. Let's just remind ourselves we get 1 free transfer every single game week, 2 maximum if you hold it, right? So keep that as well in the back of your mind, that when you talk about flexibility and buying and selling players, you only get 1 move to make for free every single game week. So let's have a look at the 3-4-3 example. 7 untouchables will be in this side, give or take, with a team value of around 101 million. The reason why the 8 to 9 million player has a question mark and is not deemed as an untouchable is that I don't believe that there are any sub 9 million midfielders right now who you would consider untouchable or unsellable. The examples now at the moment, most midfielders who have good form or good fixtures are around the 5.5 to 7, maybe even 7.5 million range. So you'd end up with spare money if you did deem them untouchable, or you comfortable playing them every week, or you could use that spare money to upgrade an untouchable you already have, like a Christensen to a Rudiger, a Guaita to an Edison, Lukaku to Ronaldo if you feel that's an improvement, or an Antonio up with that 1 to 2 million that you'll have in the bank. But that wouldn't add an additional untouchable player to your starting 11 or to your squad. So you'd still be stuck with 7 untouchable players. That 7 players in this side that are circled who you would feel comfortable playing week in, week out. So the 7 we have circled here is the goalkeeper is always circled because you're never really going to chop and change your goalkeeper. Very rarely, right? So that for all formations is classed as an untouchable. Alonso, Christensen, Trent, Salah, Lukaku, and Antonio. So these are the 7 players that week in, week out, you would feel comfortable playing. So the team we would play here, 3-4-3, would be Guaita, Alonso, Christensen, Trent, Salah, Rafinha, Sarr, and that sub 9 million midfielder, Saint-Maximin, Antonio, and Lukaku. You have 7 players here that you would want to play week in, week out, completely comfortable, and that's 4 players that you would deem to be chop, sellable, changeable, subbable, right? So 7 of those players that I've just said you would want to play pretty much every single week. The other 4 of the starting 11, you won't be tearing yourself or losing sleepless nights because you're going to get rid of those players. Sarr's form drops off. Rafinha gets injured or goes to play for Brazil. Saint-Maximin reverts to the fact that he plays for Newcastle and they probably shouldn't be getting that many returns. And your sub to sub 9 or sub 8 million midfielder has now become dropped. Your Greenwood, your Jota, your Torres, for example. You would shed no tears and have no fear dropping 4 out of your 11 players that you would have in a team with a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2. So again, now let's remember you have 1 free transfer to make, but you have 4 players in your starting 11 that are volatile. They'll hit runs of forms at times, they'll dry up during other times, and they'll possibly be sold from your team due to reasons just mentioned, like injury, loss of form, tough fixtures, things like that. You'll spend 1 free transfer a week moving around one of those 4 players, 4 positions. And that's only if you don't have any other issues with the other 7 untouchable players that you have. So you have 1 free transfer to focus on 4 players in your side, where 7 should be fine. All because you want those sweet, cheap attacking points and jumping from one bandwagon player to another bandwagon player. So why is a big 4-man or big 5-man defense more flexible than something like this? So with a 5-man expensive defense, you have 9 untouchable players that you wouldn't mind playing week in, week out, and you have a strong bench. And that is something that when I think now, if you're wildcarding, a full strong squad or almost full strong squad is important, because as a whole, it should last you around 20 game weeks. So with my 9 untouchable players, you can see that you'd never really want to bench or drop any of these players. So the 9 untouchables in this situation is, again, your goalkeeper, Alonso, Christensen, Trent, Cancelo, Diaz, Salah, Antonio, and Lukaku. Here is also the point where points per million and value for points come into play. By cutting out that one £8 to £9 million midfielder and upgrading your defense to have a good, expensive, solid 5 at the back, that one sacrifice to improve at least 2 to 3 other players who offer great value, such as Cancelo and Diaz for only 6 million, is better than one £8 to £9 million or under midfielder. And this means you've got 9 untouchables, you've only got 2 players to worry about swapping week in, week out, or subbing week in, week out with a 5-3-2 or 5-2-3 formation. Remember, we only have 1 free transfer a week, and here we have a decent bench. But also, to be honest, you should also need your bench even less with a 5-3-2 or 5-2-3 formation, because high-priced defenders are rotated far less often than mid-price midfielders or forwards. So why is this more flexible? Because it's simple, it's math. You'll only be having to chop and change 2 positions, or even just subbing within your own squad and not using any transfers, 2 positions every single game week. In a 3-4-3, you have 7 untouchables and 4 players who are cuttable or subbable from your side. In an expensive 5 defender formation, there's only 2 positions you need to worry about, meaning that 1 or 2 free transfers, if you bank one, can be purely spent on those 2 volatile, hot and cold, tough or easy fixture mid-price midfielders or forwards, whilst you can play the other 9 players pretty much every single week, week in, week out, confidently. If I look at my team every single game week and I see Alonso, Christensen, Trent, Cancelo, Diaz, Salah, Antonio, and Lukaku in my side every single week, I feel confident every single week. Instead of a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2, where around 4 of my players are inconsistent, they blow hot and cold, their form drops, or they have a difficult run of fixtures. So speaking of consistency, you'll also notice as well that I haven't done or changed any of the circles. So for example, Rafinha might be untouchable for you. So if that's the case, this formation you see on the screen would be 10 untouchables, and the 3-4-3 or 3-5-2 would be 8 untouchables. So if you class, for example, a Rafinha as an undroppable player to you who's well worth his money and you confidently want to play him week in, week out, this actual formation, this squad, becomes a 10-man untouchable team, meaning you can spend that 1 free transfer every single week swapping out your 1 cuttable player for a shiny new one. So let's have a look at a power 4-man defense for those who prefer a middle ground between a 3 and a 5 defensive formation. So 8 untouchables here, 9 if we're going to include Rafinha, and we're looking at a 4-4-2 or 4-3-3 formation. This means that 3 now of your 11 are cuttable, subbable, or sellable, which isn't too bad. And here the key for me is Livramento. I genuinely believe he is a hugely worthwhile and valuable cheap defender. I got him at 4.1. He's now 4.2, but 4.2 and under, I think he is incredible value for money, which also means that you'll be able to spend a little bit more money on your untouchables or your cuttable players. So instead of having a 6.5 million midfielder that you keep chopping or changing around the area, if you've got Livramento instead of Diaz, for example, you don't have to go and swap around your 6.5 million player. It could be an 8.5 million and under player that you can keep chopping and changing around. In this team, you're playing a back four: Alonso, Christensen, Trent, and Cancelo, with the goalkeeper, of course, Salah, Lukaku, and Antonio. They are your untouchables. And again, you're also likely to play Rafinha every week. And again, like with the other formations, you're probably going to play St. Maximin as well, as long as he stays in good form, leaving you with 9 players to feel good about almost every week. Your bench would also be solid. You'd have Livramento, you'd have Gallagher from Crystal Palace, and you would have Sarr, probably as your first sub, who's going to be fighting every single week to get into that starting 11. It's a selection headache, perhaps, but it's a welcome one, right? To have a full squad and feel comfortable with pretty much a full squad. I don't mind that personally, a selection headache. I don't mind sitting there with a really strong squad rather than trying to scrape together a team some game weeks. But for those of you that don't care about having a 2 or 3 deep strong bench, you could, for example, downgrade one of those midfielders to a 4.5 million and use that extra 1 to 2 million to improve elsewhere, or even bank that money and save it for a rainy day. You don't have to spend all the money you have. Keep some in your bank just in case of an emergency, or in case a player pops out of nowhere and you want to jump on that bandwagon straight away. But again, it comes back to defense. You would like to play pretty much every week, leaving you with the freedom and money to sell all of those 3 to 4 cuttable players. 3, it should be in a 4-man formation. People will look at 4 or 5-man defenses and just argue that one goal could ruin your entire game week and your whole defense. But we're now talking about why it's better to go huge at the back and spend those big bucks, not just going 5 at the back in general. You get what you pay for. So I'm not just saying go 5 at the back, I'm saying go expensive at the back, because Chelsea, Liverpool, and Man City, for example, should pick up around 20 clean sheets this season, which makes those 5.5 million plus defenders worth their price tag. But also, it's about defenders like Trent, Alonso, Cancelo, where you're also believing in that potential attacking return. So with defenders, you want to rely on those clean sheets. And City, Chelsea, and Liverpool are teams that can get you that, but they can also offer you that threat going forward. Finally, remember that your defenders basically start every single game week with 6 points. In a 3-4-3 or a 3-5-2, where you have a few mid-price players, some must get an attack. They all must get an attack and return, an assist, or a goal to get more than 2 points. I'd rather see if my whole team can hold together and keep a clean sheet, and then potentially also get an attack and return, rather than backing a mid-price midfielder or forward who likely plays for a mid-table side to get an attacking return, especially when around a quarter to half of the games those mid-price players will play in the season will be ones where the opposition dominates and your chances of returns are diminished. As I said before, I'm happy to play a big, expensive 5 or 4-man defense against almost anyone in the entire league. So Liverpool, City, Chelsea, I only get a little bit worried when they play against each other. But anyone else, I'll feel confident week in, week out. But could you say the same with your sub £7 million forwards and midfielders every single game week? 30 to 50% of their games in a season, the other team is going to be the favourite. So that is my opinion on why I believe a more expensive defense is the way to go, because 90% or 85% of the season, week in, week out, you're happy with spending, and it's only 5.5 million for those defenders. But these £6 to £7 million midfielders and forwards, you know, 50% of the whole season, you're going to think, oh, it's a tough game week. Oh, the opposition's really strong defensively. Oh, the other team's going to dominate the ball. Now, I know people won't like this plan, and I'm not saying that you have to choose it. I'm putting forward another way to play the game, giving reasons as to why it could work, or at least giving you some things to think about to help you realize something yourself to make your own plan to improve your own game. There are so many different play styles in FPL. All of them work for some people. All I ask for you is to please be respectable in the comments. You can disagree and give your reasons why. That would be, in fact, excellent. I want you to do that. Agree or disagree, let me know in the comments below why you think this is a good or a bad idea. But I won't accept outright abuse on this channel. So take care, good luck, and as always, have a good one.